All right, let's dive right in. Today we're plunging into the stormy, mythical world of Richard Wagner's massive opera, The Ring Cycle. But we're going to be looking at it through the eyes of someone who was first its biggest fan and later its biggest critic, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. We're going to try and understand a timeless warning about power, ambition, and what it costs the soul. This right here, this is the central haunting idea of the entire saga. You see, it's not really a story about gaining power. It's about the incredible, soul-crushing cost of trying to possess it. It's about a kind of sickness, a poison that infects everyone it touches, gods and mortals alike, all because of one single corrupting object. So where does it all begin? Well, like any great myth, it starts in a place that's totally beyond our world. Deep down in the green waters of the Rhine River, there's a treasure, this gold, just sitting there completely indifferent to the greed of the world above. That is, until someone comes along who's willing to pay the ultimate price for it. This frames the curse perfectly. You have this dwarf, Alberic. He's been scorned, he's been rejected, and he makes this awful choice. He literally forswears love, all that warmth and human connection, for the cold, hard tyranny of ownership. By forging the ring, he unleashes this sickness on the world, this desperate, all-consuming will to possess. But Alberic's raw greed is just one flavor of this sickness. Let's go up to the top, to the highest god of them all, Wotan. See, Wotan doesn't just want gold. He wants something way more dangerous, glory. He wants eternal recognition, and he's willing to go deep into debt to get it. And this is the great tragedy of Wotan, isn't it? He's not just some simple tyrant. He's a thinker, a schemer, who builds an entire world order based on contracts and laws. The problem? He immediately becomes the first prisoner of his own system. He's forced to wage war just to find a loophole in his own rules. And here's exactly how he traps himself. First, the ambition. He builds Valhalla, this magnificent fortress for the gods, but he does it on credit. Second, the terrible collateral. He promises the giants Freya, the goddess of eternal youth, as payment. And third, the desperate, flawed solution. To get out of this mess, he decides he needs the one thing that can corrupt absolutely everything, Alberic's cursed ring. So, here's the crucial point. By going after the dwarf's ring to solve his noble problem, Wotan ties his own divine fate to a curse that was born from pure weakness and spite. He compromises his own divinity, trapping himself in a web he spun all by himself. Wotan is stuck. He needs a way out. He needs a free agent, someone who can break the very rules that he's bound by. He needs a hero. He needs Siegfried, or what Nietzsche famously called the blonde beast. Just think of Siegfried as a pure force of nature. He was raised in a forest, completely outside of society, totally removed from morality. He literally, and I mean literally, does not know the meaning of fear. It's not about good or evil for him. He's just this torrent of life energy. And maybe he's necessary to come in and just shatter the old decaying world order. But, and this is a huge but, that fearlessness, that purity, is also his fatal flaw. It makes him completely naive. He's basically a child playing with cosmic fire. He can destroy things, for sure, but he has no concept of the value of what he's destroying, or the cunning of people who are much weaker than him. And make no mistake, the guy is a powerhouse. He forges the shattered sword Nothung back into one piece, he slays the dragon Fafnir, and he takes the ring. But most importantly, he shatters Wotan's spear, the very symbol of the god's law and all his contracts. The old order is officially broken. And yet, that's his downfall. The one person who can't be beaten by gods or monsters is brought down by, what? The petty schemes of fearful, weaker men, the Gebitschungs, who use lies and potions to trick him. His purity just stood no chance against their desperation. But Siegfried isn't the only hope for this world. There's another figure who challenges Wotan's rigid order, and she does it not through ignorance, but through a higher kind of wisdom. I'm talking about Wotan's own daughter, the Valkyrie Brunhilde. So here's the situation. Brunhilde is ordered by her father, Wotan, to make sure the hero Siegmund dies, because the laws of marriage and honor demand it. But she sees the hero's nobility, and she defies her father. Now, what's crucial here is that she doesn't do it out of simple pity. No, this is a conscious act of will. She recognizes a higher principle, that affirming a noble, vibrant life is more important than blindly obeying a divine but flawed rule. Man, this has to be Wotan's most agonizing moment. He loves his daughter because she did what he secretly wished he could do. But he's a god in chains, totally bound by his own contracts, so he has to punish her for being superior. He strips her of her divinity and puts her to sleep on a rock, surrounded by a ring of magic fire. So the hero has been tricked, the potential savior has been punished, the entire system is just starting to collapse. And this leads us to the epic climax of the whole saga, Götterdämmerung, the Twilight of the Gods. But if you look at it from a Nietzschean perspective, this isn't a tragedy, it's a necessity. The entire four-part opera really builds to this one question. What happens when the gods, the very source of law and meaning, get so tangled up in their own rules, their own red tape, that they can no longer act freely and just affirm life? The answer is stark. It's absolute. They must die. When the system itself becomes the prison, the only way to get free is to burn the prison down. And that's why the fiery end of Valhalla isn't a failure. It's a purification. The death of the gods isn't really an ending. It's the ultimate rejection of a divine world order, and it clears the stage for a new protagonist, humanity, now totally free to create its own values. So let's just step back for a minute and connect the dots. Let's look at the big philosophical picture that got the young Nietzsche so excited about all this. What was this great synthesis he saw in Wagner's work? Well, it really boils down to three things. First, both of them believed that modern life had become weak and stale, and that a return to these old pagan myths was the only way to get healthy again. Second, the story shows that all gods must die, which paves the way for humanity to define its own meaning. And third, it suggests this radical idea of a transvaluation of values, that what society calls evil, like a raw will to power, is often the very source of life's greatest energy. But, as we know, this intellectual romance did not last. Nietzsche eventually broke up with Wagner, basically accusing him of becoming decadent. He felt that Wagner, in his later operas like Parsifal, totally betrayed these heroic, life-affirming ideals for a weaker, chaste Christian morality that denied life instead of celebrating it. The hero got replaced by the saint. And so, that leaves us with this final, monumental question. Wagner's Ring Cycle destroys the old gods. It clears the board. It declares the divine order dead. But in doing that, it hands us the very challenge that Nietzsche would spend the rest of his life exploring. If the gods are gone, who creates our values now?